This is sort of what we do at the Port of Halifax. We generate good positive cash flow and we reinvest it back in infrastructure within the port for the benefit of our port users. You can see some pictures on the screen there. Those depict the two main infrastructure projects that we have underway right now, which are partially co-funded by the Federal Gateway and Border Crossings Fund. The other thing I'd like to mention is Green Marine. In late 2011, the Port Authority became a partner of the Green Marine program, which will allow us to benchmark the efforts that we're undertaking on from a green initiatives perspective and be able to talk about those in the future as Green Marine and green initiatives become more important as we travel the world and talk to our stakeholders and customers.
So let's talk about where we're going. And a couple of those things I'd like to focus center around this whole concept of how to drive towards competitiveness through increased productivity, through partnership arrangements, working very beneficially with the people who actually sign contracts and move cargo, how to work with the stakeholders in the port to really advance the ball across all the cargo lines, container, break bulk, and bulk. Because there's a lot of fixation at times with the container traffic, and it is a very important part of our traffic. But nonetheless relevant is the fact that people make a lot of money in the Atlantic area, and particularly in the Halifax region, through break bulk and bulk traffic. So let's talk about some of those for a second. On the containerized front, some of the initiatives we've undertaken recently are proving beneficial. The key performance metrics, the agreement we signed with CN and the two terminal operators, have in fact resulted in demonstrable improvements in dwell time for import containers in Canada. We can stack our numbers up against anybody, and we in fact do that and sell it with the business community and with CN directly to our customers and potential users of the port. The grain elevator, that's something else we've done recently. We've taken a facility that heretofore could never handle a direct containerized import of cargo from a CN rail car, built out a new tip and load facility at the elevator, and now we can take CN bulk hopper cars coming out of the prairies, dump that product into the grain elevator, have it loaded into spare 20s, which we have in surplus through the consolidation process here, and ship them to places like Indonesia. Who would have thought it, that you're sending containers of PEI soybeans to Indonesia by the Port of Halifax? But that's just one other example of what we are doing now and moving on to leverage those opportunities. In terms of bulk handling at the elevator, we're working very closely with the elevator, the Saskatchewan Trade and Economic Partnership, and other folks to developing more traffic volume over Halifax on Canada's burgeoning agricultural export trade. That's truly one of the future supply chain commodities that we have to be attentive to. The basin areas in the world that Halifax is primarily well suited to connect to, Southeast Asia, Middle East, are exactly the areas demographically that are growing, and that type of agricultural export from Canada bodes extremely well for the future of Canadian economic development. Switching gears for a second now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the cruise business. Some of you are aware of the fact we talked about ECA, the Emission Control Act, and its implications for cruise lines and their operation sourcing low sulfur fuels. We are embarked on a program right now, again with partners, the federal government and the province of Nova Scotia, working with Nova Scotia Power to be the first port in Atlantic Canada to develop and have shore power for cruise ships at the seawall here. This is a very significant thing for some of our primary callers here, such as Holland and Princess, who are now using that exact service on the West Coast, and they are delighted that Halifax is embarking on a campaign to bring it to the port here.
The third line of business at the HPA is real estate, which supports all our other lines of business. We administer 258 acres of real estate under our portfolio. Our aim is to ensure the highest and best use of all our properties to deliver maximum return on our assets for both HPA and our community. On the cruise side, Halifax Seaport, as everyone knows, is an important part of our port lands and is strategic to our cruise line of business. It was 8 years ago when we started the consultation sessions, 2004, to plan for the seaport redevelopment And we receive great input and have continued to receive very positive input from locals and others about the vision of the Halifax Seaport. Cargo sheds that once handled the bagged flour have gradually transformed into what is now our cruise pavilions and our cruise terminals. And as you know, we compete with hundreds of other cruise ports. Halifax need to have quality facilities and a greeting area so that the cruise ships continue to come to the Port of Halifax and passengers return year after year.
Our dwell time is extraordinarily good, as in virtually very little dwell. So what we were able to do with the performance indicators is to use them as a floor and then tweak it and tweak it and tweak it so it's better and better and better. You know, at the end of the day, what do we sell? We, the collective, what do we sell? We sell service. That's what we sell. So being able to measure it and being able to prove it, and the numbers not lying, very strong signal to the market. There is no silver bullet. If there was, we would have found it. Look around. We've got fantastic brains in this room. We've had great people in the port. We would have found it. There is no silver bullet. But there are lots of opportunities as long as we are prepared to jump on them and to be nimble and to be quick. The Richmond terminal expansion, the rationale behind it is really quite simple. We need to make sure that we are in a position to take and to grow our break bulk part of the business, so project cargo, large pieces of cargo, and so forth. Obviously, Richmond Terminals is going to play a huge role with our shipbuilding contract. And it being right next door to the yard makes it a very strategically important piece of infrastructure for the port and for the province, as well as a very valuable piece of real estate for the Port Authority.